He awoke, gasping, from a nightmare so vivid it felt like a prophecy, then walked the deserted halls, knowing he'd found his story. He never returned. But what if the dream wasn't just a dream, and the hotel wasn't just a building? What if it was watching, waiting, and feeding on fear? Would you dare to spend a night in a place where the walls themselves might be listening? Tell us in the comments below. And if chilling mysteries send shivers down your spine, subscribe to Host of Silence so you don't miss a single haunting tale. To understand the chilling truth behind this legend, we must first journey back to the Colorado mountains in 1909. In the silent, imposing embrace of the Colorado mountains, a grand vision began to materialize in the year 1909. This was the genesis of the Stanley Hotel, an architectural marvel born from the profound personal struggle of freelance Oscar Stanley. A magnate and inventor, a man accustomed to shaping the world around him with his intellect and drive, Stanley found himself at the age of 60 confronting a formidable adversary, tuberculosis. His robust constitution, once seemingly invincible, was now yielding to the insidious grip of the disease, its relentless cough and debilitating weakness threatening to extinguish his formidable spirit. His physicians, with their grim prognosis and limited remedies of the era, offered little hope beyond a change of climate, a move to the crisp, dry air of the Rockies. It was more than a medical recommendation. It was a desperate last resort, a whisper of potential reprieve against the inevitable. Stanley arrived in the nascent town of Estes Park, a raw, untamed landscape that offered an immediate, stark contrast to the bustling, industrialized world he knew. Here, amidst the towering peaks and the profound solitude, a new purpose ignited within him. The hotel was to be his sanctuary, a testament to his enduring will, a grand therapeutic retreat where he could breathe deeply, heal, and perhaps, against all odds, reclaim his health. Its construction was not merely a business venture. It was a personal crusade. Each stone laid a defiance against the encroaching shadow of his illness. The edifice rose with stately elegance, its imposing structure a stark, yet harmonious, counterpoint to the rugged wilderness. Its vast windows framed panoramic vistas, inviting the therapeutic mountain air indoors, and its luxurious interiors promised respite and comfort far removed from the harsh realities of the outside world. Yet, even as the finishing touches were being applied, and certainly within its earliest operational years, a subtle disquiet began to permeate the meticulously crafted walls. The initial serenity intended by its founder found itself increasingly shadowed by occurrences that defied rational explanation, incidents that began to weave a chilling tapestry of the inexplicable into the very fabric of the hotel's existence. It was as if the remote, untamed energy of the mountains, or perhaps something far older and more profound, had found a new vessel in this grand, isolated structure. Staff members, initially dismissing the oddities as the quirks of a new building settling or the overactive imaginations of weary travelers, soon found their skepticism eroding. Doors, meticulously latched and secured, would inexplicably swing open, or, more disturbingly, lock themselves from the inside, trapping bewildered occupants or preventing entry to the very rooms they were meant to service. The metallic click of the latch, often heard without a visible hand to operate it, would echo through silent corridors, leaving behind a profound sense of unease. Housekeepers, returning to tidied rooms, would discover objects subtly rearranged, not in a way that suggested human interference, but with an unsettling, almost playful, reordering that hinted at an unseen presence. Hospeds, arriving seeking solace and luxury, began to report increasingly unsettling encounters. The peripheral vision would catch fleeting, indistinct figures gliding through the long, ornate hallways, shadows that seemed to possess their own volition, vanishing just as quickly as they appeared when directly confronted. A turn of the head would reveal an empty space where a moment before, a vague form had lingered. These were not the solid, reassuring presences of fellow guests or staff. They were ephemeral, a disturbance in the air, leaving a lingering chill and a prickle of unexplained dread. The silence of the remote mountain nights, meant to be restorative, was often punctuated by soft, almost imperceptible whispers, emanating from seemingly empty rooms. These were not discernible words, but rather a low murmur, a collective hushed conversation just beyond the grasp of comprehension, sometimes accompanied by the faint, disembodied sound of children's laughter, echoing from sections of the hotel where no young guests were known to reside. The sounds were faint enough to be dismissed as the wind or the creaking of old timbers, yet distinct enough to plant a seed of doubt, a gnawing question in the minds of those who heard them. Amidst these burgeoning phenomena, a particularly resonant and poignant presence began to manifest itself. Flora Stanley, Freeland's wife, a woman of grace and refined sensibilities, held a deep passion for music, particularly the piano. At approximately 50 years of age, she was a skilled pianist, and her melodies had often filled the hotel's grand ballroom during its early days, a comforting, elegant counterpoint to the wild world outside. Now, long after the living Flora had retired for the evening, or indeed, when she was away from the hotel entirely, the distinct sound of a piano would drift from the ballroom. It was not a random cacophony, but the deliberate, practiced arpeggios and familiar melodies of classical pieces, often waltzes, played with a precision that betrayed the absence of a visible performer. The notes would swell and recede, filling the vast space with an ethereal concert that continued for minutes, sometimes longer, before fading into an unnerving silence. Staff members, drawn by the music, would cautiously approach the ballroom, only to find the room empty, the piano lid closed, and the air still, yet the faint echo of the last notes seemed to linger, a phantom resonance. For many, this was the most compelling and beautiful of the hotel's unexplained manifestations, a poignant reminder of Flora's enduring spirit, seemingly unwilling to abandon the grand stage she so loved. The cumulative effect of these occurrences was a slow, creeping realization among those who lived and worked within its walls. The Stanley Hotel, despite its intended purpose as a haven of healing and luxury, was host to something more. From its very conception, from the moment Freeland Oscar Stanley envisioned its stately form against the stark Colorado sky, the place seemed destined to hold more than just memories of opulence and the quiet aspirations of its founder. It had, almost imperceptibly at first, begun to accumulate presences, echoes of lives, and a chilling, undeniable life of its own, a silent, watchful entity nestled in the heart of the mountains. The initial whispers of its spectral inhabitants gradually solidified into an unsettling truth, transforming the majestic retreat into a monument to the unexplained, a place where the veil between worlds felt thin, almost transparent, even in its nascent years. The crisp mountain air, once a symbol of healing, now carried a subtle, undeniable chill that had nothing to do with the altitude. The grand edifice constructed by Freeland Oscar Stanley, a marvel of early 20th century engineering and a testament to his ambition, was intended as a therapeutic sanctuary. Its very foundations, laid in 1909 amidst the crisp Colorado air, were meant to foster health and tranquility for guests, including Freeland himself, who sought respite from his illness. Yet, barely 2 years after its celebrated opening, a singular, cataclysmic event would forever etch a different, more chilling identity onto one of its most prominent chambers, Room 217. This room, once merely a number on a door, was destined to become the undisputed epicenter of the hotel's burgeoning supernatural legend, a place where the veil between worlds seemed to wear remarkably thin. It was in the quiet hours of a warm June evening in 1911 that Elizabeth Wilson, a diligent and meticulous chambermaid in her early 30s, embarked on her routine duties within the spacious confines of Room 217. The hotel, still relatively new, operated with the latest conveniences, including a sophisticated gas lighting system. Unbeknownst to anyone, a perilous gas leak had developed within the room, an insidious, imperceptible accumulation of volatile fumes. Elizabeth, approaching the chamber with her customary care, carried a lit lantern, its soft glow intended to illuminate her path. The air, heavy with the sweet, cloying scent of the escaping gas, awaited only a spark. As Elizabeth crossed the threshold, the inevitable ignition occurred with a devastating, concussive roar. The force of the explosion was monumental, a sudden, violent upheaval that tore through the very structure of the room, shattering its grand windows and splintering the ornate woodwork. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Dust, debris, and the acrid smell of burning materials. Elizabeth Wilson, caught directly in the epicenter of the blast, was thrown with unimaginable violence against a far wall, her body enduring severe and life-threatening injuries. The sheer improbability of her survival was a marvel in itself, a testament to an unseen resilience. Her physical recovery was a prolonged and arduous ordeal, a testament to her tenacity. Yet, despite her eventual return to health, a pervasive belief took root among the hotel staff and subsequent guests. Elizabeth Wilson's spirit, intrinsically linked to the trauma and the room, had never truly departed from the scene of the incident. In the decades that followed, Room 217 transitioned from a mere guest accommodation into a focal point of persistent and increasingly vivid unexplained phenomena. The lingering, individualized presence of Elizabeth Wilson became, without question, the hotel's most active and widely recognized spectral resident. Guests who occupied the room consistently reported a distinct, often unexpected, floral fragrance permeating the air. This ephemeral perfume, overwhelmingly identified as lavender, would manifest suddenly, lingering for moments before dissipating, only to reappear without discernible cause. It was a scent many associated with Elizabeth during her lifetime, a signature, gentle yet unmistakably present, drifting through the space as a subtle, unsettling reminder of her perpetual watch over the room she once tended. The experience of this phantom scent often left occupants with a profound sense of being in the presence of something unseen, a feeling that transcended mere coincidence. Beyond the olfactory encounters, there were tangible, albeit baffling, alterations to the physical environment. Personal belongings, left in various states of disarray by unsuspecting occupants, were frequently discovered meticulously arranged or folded with an uncanny precision. Shirts draped carelessly over chairs were found neatly folded on dressers. Toiletries haphazardly placed on countertops were realigned with an almost obsessive attention to order. Suitcases, left open, were sometimes found latched. These acts of spectral domesticity, attributed directly to the diligent and perhaps overly particular spirit of the former chambermaid, suggested a continuation of her duties, a tireless commitment to maintaining order, even from beyond the veil of life. The very act of objects being moved or tidied without human intervention served as a chilling testament to her enduring presence, a quiet, almost methodical manifestation of her post-mortem routine. Perhaps the most unnerving and consistently reported occurrence within room 217 involved the profound sensation of being observed. Guests, alone in the room, would awaken abruptly from sleep, not from a nightmare, but from an acute and undeniable awareness of a presence near their beds. A distinct, often localized chill in the air, a subtle shift in the room's ambient energy, would frequently accompany this feeling, leaving them with an indelible impression of a watchful, non-malevolent entity. It was not a menacing gaze, but rather a persistent, almost maternal supervision, as if Elizabeth Wilson continued her vigil over the comfort, decorum, and order of her assigned chamber. Anonymous guests, from diverse backgrounds and ages, recounting their experiences to hotel staff and fellow travelers, formed a consistent tapestry of encounters within room 217. These individual narratives, often shared with a mixture of awe and unease, solidified the room's reputation as a place where the spectral world intersected most vividly with the mortal. The playful laughter of unseen children, often a fleeting, joyous sound echoing through the hotel's older sections, was also occasionally reported faintly from within the confines of the room, adding another subtle layer to the pervasive spectral tapestry woven by the hotel's rich and increasingly haunted history. The cumulative weight of these persistent, specific manifestations cemented room 217's reputation not just as a haunted room, but as a living monument to the past, a chamber where the boundaries between worlds thinned considerably. Freelan Oscar Stanley, visionary though he was in constructing this magnificent retreat, and his wife Flora Stanley, whose elegant piano melodies once filled the grand hall, had inadvertently created a stage for such spectral dramas. The echoes of the 1911 explosion continued to reverberate not as a fading memory of destruction, but as a perpetual reminder of a spirit unwilling or unable to depart. The room, for countless visitors, ceased to be merely a number on a door. It became Elizabeth Wilson's undisputed domain, a place where her enduring spirit continued its quiet, methodical work, forever entwined with the very fabric of the Stanley Hotel. The tension within its walls remained palpable, a constant whisper of the unseen, turning an isolated, near-fatal incident into the very heartbeat of the hotel's profound and enduring paranormal legend. The phenomena were not random. They were patterned, purposeful, and deeply personal to the spectral resident, solidifying room 217 as the singular location where the hotel's ethereal narrative resonated most powerfully. A chilling breath of autumn, unusually sharp for the Colorado Rockies, swirled around the grand edifice of the Stanley Hotel in 1974. Inside, an unsettling quiet had settled, a silence so profound it seemed to absorb all sound. The vast, ornate halls, usually a murmur of activity, lay deserted. Every room was empty save for one, a solitary beacon of life in the imposing structure. Stephen King, a writer of 27 years, and his wife were the hotel's only occupants, their presence a fleeting whisper in the grand, echoing chambers. They had sought refuge from the cold in the infamous room 217, a space already steeped in whispers and dark legend, though King, at that moment, was perhaps only vaguely aware of its full history, including the spectral echoes of Elizabeth Wilson. The night deepened, wrapping the hotel in a shroud of impenetrable darkness. King, weary from a day of travel and the quiet strangeness of their isolated stay, drifted into an uneasy sleep. What followed was not rest, but an invasion of the mind, a nightmare of startling clarity and horrifying intensity. Within the terrifying landscape of his dream, the very architecture of the Stanley Hotel transformed into a menacing, labyrinthine prison. Its long, carpeted corridors, the very ones he had walked just hours before, stretched into an endless, twisting maze, their ornate wallpaper seeming to press in, to breathe with a sinister life. Through this nightmarish expanse, a small, desperate figure darted, propelled by an unseen terror. It was his son, a tiny, vulnerable presence, his childish form contorted in an agony of fear. The dream presented a relentless pursuit, an invisible, malevolent force dogging the boy's every step. A chilling, guttural wail, born of pure terror, echoed through the dreamscape, a sound that pierced King's very soul, not heard by the ears but felt deep within his chest. The boy's tiny legs pumped, a desperate, futile attempt to escape the encroaching darkness, a darkness that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the hotel, from the very air of room 217. The dream intensified, a crescendo of fear, as the unseen entity closed in, its presence a cold, suffocating weight. The boy's desperate screams for help, raw and heartbreaking, reverberated through the dream, a plea that King, trapped in the paralysis of sleep, could not answer. A gasp tore through King's throat, a ragged sound of pure terror that ripped him from the clutches of the nightmare. He awoke with a sudden, violent jolt, his body rigid, every muscle tensed. His breath came in ragged, shallow gasps, his heart hammering against his ribs with a frantic, desperate rhythm. Sweat, cold and clammy, slicked his skin, a tangible testament to the nightmare's suffocating grip. The room, though dark, seemed to pulse with a residual dread, the lingering tendrils of the dream clinging to the air, refusing to dissipate entirely. The silence of room 217, once merely quiet, now felt charged, heavy with an unseen presence, a profound stillness that amplified the frantic beating of his own heart. The spectral energy of Elizabeth Wilson, long a resident of that very room, seemed to coalesce around him, though he had no name for it then. Unable to return to the unsettling embrace of sleep, a profound sense of unease gnawing at him, King rose. He moved through the silent room, a solitary figure in the vast, sleeping hotel. The need to escape the oppressive atmosphere of room 217, if only for a few moments, was overwhelming. He stepped into the corridor, the silence of the hotel swallowing him whole. The long hallway stretched before him, illuminated only by the sparse amber glow of distant wall sconces, casting elongated, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and stretch with a life of their own. Each step echoed, a stark, lonely sound in the profound stillness, a testament to the hotel's utter emptiness. There was no other sound, no distant cough, no murmur of conversation, no creak of another floorboard. It was as if the hotel itself held its breath, watching. He walked aimlessly, a solitary figure in a labyrinth built by Freelan Oscar Stanley, the grand vision of its creator now imbued with an unsettling, almost sentient quiet. The polished wood and intricate carpet stretched on, seemingly endless, mirroring the very corridors of his recent nightmare. The heavy silence pressed in, a palpable presence that seemed to whisper of secrets, of forgotten echoes. It was a silence that felt ancient, profound, as if the very walls absorbed sound, hoarding it, releasing only the subtle creaks and groans of a building settling in the cold night. The spectral touch of Flora Stanley's piano, though unheard at that moment, seemed to resonate in the stillness, a phantom melody hanging in the air. This oppressive quiet, combined with the lingering terror of his dream, created an atmosphere of profound isolation, an unsettling awareness of being utterly alone in a place that felt anything but empty. The anonymous guests who had reported strange happenings, the laughter of unseen children, the faint knocking, the fleeting shadows. All these phenomena seemed to coalesce into the very air King breathed, a subconscious understanding of the hotel's true nature. Eventually, the chill of the deserted corridors began to seep into his bones, and a strange, compelling urge drew him back towards room 217. As he approached the door, a profound realization, sharp and clear as a winter morning, crystallized in his mind. The pieces of a story, disjointed and fragmented moments from his nightmare and the palpable dread of the hotel, suddenly clicked into place. The isolated hotel, the desperate child, the unseen malevolence, the descent into madness, it all coalesced into a complete, horrifying narrative. The story of The Shining was not merely a concept, it was fully formed, a terrifying gift born from the depths of a nightmare in room 217. The experience had been so profoundly disturbing, so deeply unsettling, that it left an indelible mark upon his psyche. Stephen King, though his stay had birthed a literary masterpiece, never returned to the Stanley Hotel, the memory of that cold, silent night and the terror it had unleashed forever etched into his being. The modern era at the Stanley Hotel ushered in a new, unsettling chapter, one where the whispers of the past transformed into undeniable shouts, and the subtle unease escalated into overt dread. After Stephen King's transformative night in room 217 in 1974, the hotel's reputation as a locus of the paranormal solidified, attracting not just curious tourists but serious investigators and those seeking proof of the beyond. What began as anecdotal whispers among the staff and isolated incidents reported by a few brave guests rapidly morphed into a pervasive, documented phenomenon that defied conventional explanation. Video recordings, a luxury unavailable in the early 20th century, began to capture inexplicable occurrences. Infrared cameras, set up in supposedly empty corridors and the notorious Room 217, would register fleeting, translucent figures, often appearing as shimmering distortions in the air, or dark, amorphous shadows that traversed the frame with an unnatural speed. One particularly chilling sequence captured a light fixture in the presidential suite, once occupied by freelance Oscar Stanley himself, swaying violently as if struck by an unseen force, despite a complete absence of drafts or seismic activity. Another showed a small antique toy train, left on a table in the Grand Hall, slowly rolling off the edge as if pushed, defying gravity and logic. These visual records served as irrefutable evidence, moving the narrative from mere folklore to observable, albeit inexplicable, fact. The escalating activity drew the attention of spiritualist groups and parapsychologists from across the globe. Sessions were regularly conducted within the hotel's historic walls, particularly in the music room where Flora Stanley's piano often played by itself, and on the fourth floor, a known hotspot for unexplainable phenomena. During these meticulously documented seances, cold spots would manifest with startling suddenness, dropping temperatures by several degrees in mere seconds, leaving a palpable chill that permeated clothing and bone. Objects, such as pens or small trinkets, would mysteriously vanish from sight, only to reappear in an entirely different location minutes or hours later. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, recorders, strategically placed throughout the hotel, consistently captured faint, disembodied whispers and guttural moans, voices that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the building, often too distorted to fully comprehend but undeniably present, their origin untraceable to any living source. The overwhelming consensus from these investigations was clear. The hotel was not merely haunted, it was profoundly, actively, and increasingly conscious of its inhabitants. Anonymous guests, drawn by the hotel's macabre allure, became unwitting chroniclers of its escalating malevolence. Their accounts, collected in guest books and online forums, painted a consistent and terrifying picture. Laughter, clear and distinctly childlike, was frequently reported echoing from empty suites on the fourth floor, where freelance Oscar Stanley's children once played. This laughter, though innocent in tone, carried an unsettling quality, a disembodied mirth that seemed to mock the living, leaving witnesses with a profound sense of unease. Unexplained knocks, rhythmic and persistent, would reverberate on guest room doors in the dead of night, only for the guest to find an empty corridor upon investigation. These knocks often seemed to come from within the room itself, originating from closet doors or the interior of antique armoires, creating a terrifying sense of invasion. The most common and disturbing reports involved the fleeting vision of dark, humanoid shapes, voltos, glimpsed in peripheral vision, darting through hallways or standing motionless at the foot of beds, only to vanish the instant direct eye contact was attempted. These apparitions, though brief, left a lingering impression of being watched, of sharing space with entities that existed just beyond the veil of normal perception. A particularly disturbing phenomenon began to emerge in the hotel's administrative records. Guests who, despite having checked in and occupied a room, would inexplicably vanish from the records. Their reservations would simply cease to exist in the digital ledger, check-in cards would disappear from physical files, and their names would be absent from the daily guest manifest. While their personal belongings remained in their rooms, and their vehicles in the parking lot, all official documentation of their presence would be erased, leaving no trace of their stay. This administrative erasure was a bureaucratic horror, baffling staff and management alike, suggesting a chilling manipulation of reality by an unseen force within the hotel, as if the building itself was selectively deciding who truly belonged within its grasp. The pervasive paranormal activity eventually took its toll on the hotel's employees. A palpable tension hung in the air, particularly on the upper floors after dusk. Stories circulated among the staff, hushed and grim, of objects moving on their own, of disembodied whispers calling their names, and of an overwhelming sense of being watched, even when alone. The most experienced night shift workers, those who had witnessed the hotel's escalating peculiarities firsthand, began to openly refuse assignments to the fourth and second floors, especially near room 217. The fear was tangible, a cold dread that clung to their uniforms and their minds. Many reported a peculiar, suffocating pressure in the air, a feeling of being drained, as if their very essence was being siphoned away by an unseen entity. The hotel, they whispered, was not just a place where spirits resided. It was a living, breathing entity that consumed the energy of the living. The cumulative evidence from decades of unexplained occurrences, from the spectral presence of Freeland Oscar Stanley overseeing his domain, to the playful yet chilling echoes of Flora Stanley's piano, to Elizabeth Wilson's enduring presence in room 217, culminated in a terrifying realization. The Stanley Hotel was not merely a structure frequented by the deceased, it possessed a malevolent consciousness of its own. It was a sentient entity, absorbing the psychic energy, the fear, and the life force of those who dared to cross its threshold. This absorption was not passive. It was an active feeding, a consumption of human emotion and vitality. In return, the hotel seemed to regurgitate fragmented, distorted echoes of its victims, leaving a lasting and terrifying impression on their minds, haunting their memories long after they departed. The spirits, the hotel's permanent residents, those who had passed within its walls, Freeland, Flora, Elizabeth, and the anonymous, forgotten guests, had never truly checked out. They were inextricably woven into the very fabric of the building, their essence becoming part of its insatiable hunger, forever bound to a conscious, ever-evolving nightmare. We've journeyed through the unsettling echoes of the Stanley Hotel, a place where the veil between the living and something else seems perpetually thin. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is it merely the power of suggestion, the collective imagination of countless guests fueled by a famous tale? Or do certain spaces, marked by significant human joy, sorrow, or tragedy, truly become canvases for the unseen, imprinting the essence of those who lived and died within their walls? From Freeland Stanley's ambitious vision to Elizabeth Wilson's enduring presence, and even to Stephen King's chilling inspiration, the hotel seems to weave a tapestry of shared human experience, some of it deeply unsettling. Perhaps it's a reminder that our stories, and the energies we leave behind, can linger far beyond our mortal coil, shaping the very atmosphere of a place for generations to come. What do you believe? Have you ever visited a place that just felt different? A location where the past seemed to press against the present? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We're always eager to hear your perspectives on these mysteries. And if you're drawn to the unexplained, make sure you're subscribed to our channel for more journeys into the shadows.